Hello, and welcome to another edition of From the Horse's Mouth, the show where we get to hear stories from those who know it best. Now, he is known by many names: Israel, Heel Catcher, Jacob, Deceiver. But where do they come from? And who is he really? Well, let's find out as we hear straight from the horse's mouth. Deceiver. Yeah, I've absolutely loved having that tag my whole life, I can tell you. You know who else is known as the Deceiver? Imagine being in that company. Not much fun, especially when it's not really my fault. So yeah, I'm happy to have this opportunity to set the story straight. But to do that, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. You see, there's things to do with my birth that have a bearing on certain deceitful acts. It took Mum a long time to get pregnant. In fact, by all accounts, my father had to ask God on her behalf. You see, there was this whole grains of sand prophecy over my granddad and my dad, over my family basically. So, yeah, childless, it wasn't really an option. Typical of the Lord though, blessed more than he was asked for. Twins.
Well, the way Dad told it was a rough pregnancy. I mean, babies like to kick, but we would stick the boot into each other. Wrestling since day minus 120 something.
Yeah, Mum got so fed up with all the wriggling, she went to ask God about it. What was going on? Turns out we had big futures, my brother and me. We were going to be nations, races of people. The downside is we wouldn't exactly be allies, hence the wrestling. But there's more, and this is the key bit. He also said that the older one would serve the much cleverer and better looking younger one. I mean, okay, he didn't say that last bit, but he did say the bit about serving. And you see, from day one, this was in the back of my mum's mind. Oh, we don't talk about this bit to Esau, okay? Yeah.
I was born first, the eldest, the firstborn. And then out he comes, holding onto my heel for all he's worth, trying to pull me back in. Hence his name.
So, Jacob means holder of the heel, which is a turn of phrase for supplanter. But that's not why they called me that. I mean, I was literally holding his heel.
Well, if the cap fits, that's all I'm saying. All I'm saying.
Holding his heel.
Mummy's boy soon gave up trying to hold me back, though. Stayed around our mother all the time, learning to cook, tend to animals. While I was out in the wild hunting the animals. Dad valued that far more.
I bet he mentioned being a hunter, didn't he? I knew it. Look, seriously, we owned animals. We lived with animals. Why would we need to hunt? Honestly. Look, maybe if he'd stayed at home and learned to cook, he wouldn't have lost his birthright. I mean, who trades their birthright for a bowl of stew? Even my stew.
It's no exaggeration to say he took advantage. I'd been out in the wild for days, hunting. I was starving, absolutely exhausted, and the tent was full of the most amazing scents from his cooking. What was I going to do? What good to a man is a birthright when you feel like you're going to die? Birthright. But it should have made me more careful. Should have made me keep a closer eye on the lying, sneaky little...
So remember when I told you earlier that God had told Mum that her eldest would serve her youngest? Well, she comes to me one day and she said, my father is preparing to give Esau his blessing. Yeah, as soon as he comes back from hunting and makes my father's favourite meal. But for some reason he always preferred wild game. Go figure. Anyway, she must have been thinking, I can't let this happen because of what God said. So she told me to go off and get some goats and she would make him a meal. And I could pretend to be Esau. I mean, this was pretty elaborate. She had me wear Esau's clothes so I would smell like him. And she covered my arms with the goat hair because, I mean, he's terribly hairy, is Esau. Terribly hairy. All to convince my father. I mean, he was old and he was pretty much blind. But he wasn't stupid. Worked, though. I mean, he wasn't convinced when he heard my voice. I am Esau and I'm a hairy hunter. Ha ha ha. And he asked me how I'd found game so quickly. I told him the Lord had granted me success. Wasn't strictly a lie. Anyway, once he'd smelled my clothes and he felt my hairy goat arms, he fell for it, gave me his blessing. I could tell you, I only just got out of there before Esau came back. I made myself scarce for a few days after that.
I remember the pain of that moment to this very day. When Dad told me he had already given his blessing, I let out a cry of the most bitter rage and utter heartbreak.
So you see, really, it was all Mum's idea. I just went along with it.
I've long suspected that our mother had a hand in it. She always loved him more. But he still went along with it. He still spoke my name as if it were his own. No, he is well named. Deceiver. He is famous for it.
Well, you know what they say about Esau, don't you? Sold his inheritance for a meal. Godless.
Is that what he said?